Hello, welcome back to the Reading Mama. My name is Heather, and today I'm going to give you my July wrap up. So I started the month, this was a month with a lot of audiobooks, so keep that in mind. I started the month with God Smuggler, which follows the story of Brother Andrew smuggling Bibles and the Christian message behind the Iron Curtain. Super wonderful story, amazingly well written. It's kind of autobiographical. He helped with the writing. I highly recommend it. Please forgive my voice. I'm getting over a cold sinus infection that the kids have been sharing, and it's lingering with me the longest. But God Smuggler was tops, loved it. Great audiobook too. A really good read. I would recommend it for even all the way down to middle grade. I think it's more high school level. If you're wanting to share it with your kids, maybe a read aloud. That's kind of what I was thinking. But it was a great biography for anyone. And then The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh was another audiobook. This is a middle grade, and you follow 3 points of view. You have two girls in 1933, one in America, one in Ukraine, and then a young man, boy, in 2020, and how he's dealing with being stuck indoors, his fears, and all the things that come along with it. And while it does have kind of some of the lies from that time period that aren't exactly accurate, that is a lot of kids lived in experience, and I'm not going to deny that. And then 1933, you follow a young woman in Ukraine whose father works for the Soviet government, and it's talking about how she basically comes to a new understanding of what the Soviet government is as she meets a relative who is suffering from the Holodomor, which is a government-influenced famine that they suffered all throughout that area. And it really tackles those concepts of communism and freedom and what freedom really is. And I think that's interesting that she tied in the 2020 kind of point of view. Very, very interesting story. Heartbreaking story. Great author's note at the end talking about some of these things. Highly recommend it. Middle grade, The Lost Year by Catherine Marsh. And then I read a physical book, middle grade. It's called Uprising by Margaret Peterson Haddix, and I love Margaret Peterson Haddix. She does some great historical fiction sci-fi like mashups. They're amazing. They're like binge worthy. But Uprising is not science fiction. It's just straight up historical fiction. You follow 3 points of view of young ladies and how they relate to the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire and Triangle Shirtwaist strike. And so you've got a lot of talk about communism and capitalism and what it means to be free and that pursuit of happiness and how that really plays out in the early 1900s. Very, very interesting story. Around the same time period, I also started listening to The Radium Girls. Sounds interesting, great nonfiction. I am going to have to say that for another time. My mom just finished radiation for breast cancer, and I could not listen to that story knowing my mom was going through. I know it's a totally different kind of radiation, but it was a different, I understand. Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so that was my DNF. Then I actually read a physical copy, an ebook copy of The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Cowell. I really enjoyed this. This is an alternate history set in the 1950s, and a meteorite has fallen into the Atlantic Ocean, caused some major issues and destruction and all kinds of things. And then it's considered an extinction level event, and so other things are happening. And so the whole push is we've got to leave Earth by a certain time because it's going to become uninhabitable. And I can't quite wrap my head around the fact that Earth's going to become uninhabitable. So we're going to go live on the moon or Mars, which we know are uninhabitable. Why don't we just make those domes or whatever here on Earth? Anyways, we're going to suspend logic because that's what you do with a great science fiction. And this is a historical science fiction. It tackles a lot of the race issues of the time, a lot of the gender issues of the time, and it talks about kind of the point of view from a computer and a female pilot, and some of the struggles she might have faced. So very good. I'm going to continue the series. I really enjoyed it. Then I listened to a book, Listen for the Lie. I don't recommend it. Way too much swearing. The premise was pretty interesting though, because basically a woman can't remember whether or not she murdered her best friend, and there's a podcaster who likes to solve true crime, and he's interviewing her and all the people in the town, and you go back and forth between her point of view, and then the podcast, and it was very interesting. Good audiobook, like well written, but way too much swearing. But I cannot recommend it to anybody because of that. Um, then I read elementary, middle grade read called The Star That Always Stays. New author to me, really, really sweet story. And you follow a, I'm trying to make sure I don't mix it up with the other one. You're following a family that is Ojibwa, and it's in the early 1900s, I want to say. I can't remember. I think it might be before the wars, between the wars, I mean. Um, and they are living up on an island in one of the Great Lakes, and the father ends up leaving the mother, so she's now a victim of divorce and all the stigma that comes along with that, plus the stigma of them being Ojibwa, and um, just her perspective of things. It's a little girl, but I just thought it was very sweet. It was actually, it's not marked as a Christian read, but it is a Christian. It has a beautiful testimony and gospel presentation at the end. It was sweet. It was beautiful. I'm buying all of her books. She's got 2 out right now and another one that comes out, I believe, next year. And yeah, this author was awesome. I read her, I'm reading her other one to my kids, and they're both just beautiful stories. And then I read, what did I read? Oh, I read Monumental Courage. That was a pre-read for school. Monumental Courage is a very, very short elementary level chapter book about Desmond Doss, and it was really done very well. They're short chapters, the writings, but it's a great introductory biography for a young kid to learn about the harrowing task that Desmond Doss faced as a conscientious objector who wanted to still be in the war. He volunteers to be in World War II, but refuses to pick up a gun. They try to call him crazy, get him out on a Section 8, all these things. He ends up going as a medic, and he miraculously, through God's help, saves 75 men. It's just an amazing story, and it's, like I said, it's a teeny tiny short chapter about Desmond Doss, chapter book about Desmond Doss, Monumental Courage. Was really well done. And then I did another pre-read, and this is for about 5th grade. My 5th grade, I think, is who I have reading this. It was Stella by Starlight by Sharon Draper. Amazing, powerful, heart-wrenching book. It's set in the 30s again, and she follows Stella, is a young Black girl, and her family is growing up in the South, and it just dives into all the concepts of KKK going on and her, like, brush up with it, basically, and all these different things, and about her family, her father being able to vote for the first time, and all of those things. But what I loved about it is the community, just like the beautiful community that they share, and coming together in light of some horrendous events. But definitely going to be elementary school, but it was beautiful. Definitely a great book, and I did that by audiobook too, and that was wonderful. Then I continued the Ember in the Ashes series that I'm reading along with Krista at Books and Jams and her readathon for the summer. And that was amazing. Torch Against the Night continues the story of Elias and Leah and Helene, I can't remember. And yeah, the war is going on. They're trying to save Leah's brother. Elias has got all these kinds of problems going on. They get separated because he chooses to go try to find her brother on his own, and then just like, it's just problem after problem after problem, hardship after hardship. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, so I don't want to say too much more, but it was a great kind of, we'll call it science fiction, great fantasy novel. I love the thing, but it's getting a little dark on this one. You deal a lot more with the topic of death and your purpose and finding out who you really are as a person. And then next book I read was Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. And this is again a pre-read, this one for my 6th grader rather. And definitely would want them to be middle school age for this. This is 30s. You're going to talk about job security and property and farm and racism and just life in the South for Black people, and touches on white people. And it was just an interesting family dynamic and story. And them trying to save their family property and dealing with just violence all around them. Definitely recommend that. Then I read a biography pre-read for one of my elementary students called The Story of Nelson Mandela. Great introductory biography to Nelson Mandela. Then as part of one of my 40 by 40 readings, I continued Prince Caspian, which also counted as my royalty thing for Read Your Bookshelf Challenge. Absolutely loved it. Prince Caspian continues the Narnia story. The kids go back to Narnia, and really, you're trying to help Prince Caspian, who's like a ruler of Narnia many centuries after they had been in Narnia. And the whole story, they're basically trying to get to him. Just the last few chapters, they're there to help him win the battle. But it was a good story and good revisit. Then I did an audiobook of Endurance, which is the story of Shackleton and his exploration of the South and Antarctica. Highly recommend. Good story. It was heavy. It was a lot. It was just shockingly amazing that all the things that worked together and helped them. The Frozen River by Ariel Lawhon, and it's like really popular for a reason, but it was like grittier than I was expecting. Like a lot grittier than I was expecting. And it's between a married couple for the most part, and then like there's the talk about her rape too. So I mean, like there was a lot going on. Basically, in this, you're following a midwife. It's not what I expected. You're following a midwife in colonial America, and it opens up with them finding a body in the river. Come to find out, it's a guy who's been accused of raping the pastor's wife. Pastor has recently been kicked out of the church because I don't remember why. All these things are going on, and you get a lot of the colonial life. You get a lot of the midwifery life, and like, I don't know. The way she paints is everybody had premarital sex and everybody was getting knocked up before they got married. I don't know if that really is colonial life, or I don't know. The author says she based it on the lady's actual diary that she kept. So I don't know, but if that's true, that was like 80% of the people were getting knocked up before they got married. And that feels like a high number. But I don't know. Maybe it was like that. And so you deal with a lot of that, and you deal with a lot of the court issues, and then just like, people in wealth having power over others, and women's rights kind of tucks in there a little bit. It was a good read. It was very interesting. I wanted to keep reading every chapter. I wanted to know what happened next, but a little grittier than I really hoped for. But hey, it was between a married couple for the most part, and trying to show that you can still love each other in your 50s, which my husband and I turned 40 this year, so I hope that's true. And all those things. But it was just, not what I expected. And then I ended the month with a historical fiction called Unsinkable. And in this, you follow two women, one in the early 1900s, one during World War II. And one, she survives the Titanic, and then you go into World War I and World War II and her whole life. And then the other, you follow her through World War II. And I kept thinking, how are they going to come together? How are they related? Very interesting story. Enjoyed it immensely. Couldn't put it down. Had some slow parts to it. Sorry, we have a brother torturing a sister. But Unsinkable was really good. I really enjoyed it. A lot of topics of like self-identity and knowing who you are, and there was a little bit of a romance, but that's not the main story, because it's about the women really finding themselves and understanding who they are and being bold. And so it was very enjoyable. Like I said, I DNF'd Radium Girls, not because it's bad, but because frankly I just couldn't handle the topic at the time. I think there were some more. Sorry, lost storage for a minute. But yeah, I DNF'd a few others, but I really enjoyed my month. It was good reading. I'll come back with another video to tell you why it was all wrong books I should not have been reading, because I have a whole nother list I should have been tackling, but that's another video. So thank you for watching. If you made it to the end of this, drop me a summary emoji down below. And thank you again for watching. Have a blessed day.